What is up, everybody? Welcome back here to the channel. As always, appreciate you having on here. We're talking dynasty trades today. We're looking at 5 guys that are being either traded the most in leagues or have some value or are injured, right? We're going to have a little bit of a theme here. What we're going to be doing is looking at guys that possibly are on the IR, at least first couple guys, and just kind of talking about what their value and what their backups value are, and then looking at some veteran guys that you should be targeting. So an all-encompassing episode here, but we got to talk about him. First guy up, Christian McCaffrey. What the heck are we doing with Christian McCaffrey, right? As you can see from his keep trade cut value, it's plummeting, right? This is probably the lowest it's been in years. When you're thinking of Christian McCaffrey since he got to 49ers, right? We saw the injuries there. Obviously, he could miss up to 6 weeks. It's really unheard of right now of what we're dealing with. He's Achilles tendonitis can be kind of it's one of those things that lasts for the whole season. When you go through Twitter, you can look at the doctors on there. They talk about it, the physical therapist. Like, this is something that he could be dealing with all year. So it is a risk, right? When you're thinking of like, hey, will they use him anyway? Do they need him, right? I think them losing to the Vikings helps that case, because if Jordan Mason's in there getting 100 yards, doing those type of things, I think with CMC, it's like, oh, we can just kind of baby him back, get him for the playoffs, and he can go help us win a Super Bowl. But if they continue to lose, and when you're looking at their schedule, right, playing the Rams, that's pretty much a must-win game for them. I think they will this week, especially with all the Rams injuries. I mean, Rams can't even field the team at this point. And I think that, 49ers will win that game. But if you see them lose a few games, McCaffrey's, I think, value goes up because I think they're going to use him more, right? So there's a lot of risks involved with McCaffrey. Now, when you're looking at the deals out there for him and where he's kind of going, it's pretty interesting here. Like McCaffrey, Lloyd, Irving, and a first. To me, I still like the McCaffrey side there, right? If I can sell him for 2 second-round guys and a first, and I'm a contender, and I think that he can come back, that's pretty good value there, right? McCaffrey in a fourth for Tua, for Shaheed, and a first, right? So thinking of Tua's injury, he just got placed at IR today. Shaheed's had a great year, but will that be able to continue? Is Olave going to finally kind of step up there? And a first. He's going for a first around there. I thought another deal that I thought was really, really interesting that happened this week, McCaffrey and a second for Joe Mixon and Debo. Man, I really like the McCaffrey side there. I think Joe's had a good year. Debo's been banged up as well when you're thinking of him. Give me the second back, so I have that off-ramp for a second. I'm taking the risk with McCaffrey, but I still get a second, which is pretty good capital. You could use that second for a veteran later. Like, there's a lot of ways you can use that second-round pick that I like. He's going straight up for a first. That's worth the risk, in my opinion, if you are a late contender here. And then, other deals here. T. Higgins, Zach Charbonnet, a fourth. I'm still on the CMC side there. So I think he's actually valuable. I think if you're willing to take the risk on him and you can make the playoffs and you're looking at your roster and you can take a little bit of a hit early and you're like, hey, I can make this run here. I have a very solid team. He's the type of guy to add to your roster there. And I've talked about it too. If you have CMC, I'm not pivoting it off of a ton. Like, if I can go get a guy like Saquon or Kamara or, Derrick Henry, as I pointed out last week, like those type of guys, I'm willing to do that and wait on McCaffrey. You kind of find that production elsewhere at that running back spot. Next guy I want to talk about, Jordan Mason. Why not? Talk about his backup here. Week 2, we saw 20 attempts, 100 yards, and a touchdown. He was running back 10 overall in PPR. And really, this is what we just come to expect from 49er running backs, right? This is just what he does. And I think that's just the thing with him being out the next 3 games. He does hold value. I think Mason does hold value there. And yesterday's price is not today's price because it is continuing to climb because he's producing, right? And you see it right there. We talk about all the time, people will miss out on that buy window, and now they want him still for cheap. Don't sell him for cheap. If you have Jordan Mason and you are looking to pivot off of him, hey, he's probably worth a first now, not just a second, right? So use that. Don't let people kind of get in for cheap here. And when you're seeing some of the deals, like a second, a fourth, to me, I'm still on the Mason side if I'm a contender. I like that value early, and I can use him and pivot off of them. But if you think a fourth and second does enough for you, that's fine. I absolutely love Jordan Mason for Tank Dell. If you can get Tank Dell for Jordan Mason, you do that. 100% smash it. You take Tank Dell on that offense if you can go there. Jordan Mason and Justin Fields. I saw that deal happen. Again, they're still unknown about Justin Fields and Russell Wilson and what that's going to look like. But it does sound like Tomlin's leaning towards Justin Fields. If you can go get a superflex quarterback with top 10 upside like Fields, I think you do it for Jordan Mason, right? Jordan Mason is replaceable. Justin Fields, a superflex quarterback, may not be. Now, he might get replaced with Russell Wilson. There's always a risk there. But I do like having that upside, the quarterback position. Fields is going to be relevant. Look at Darnold. Look at Baker. Look at all these guys that have been backups that now you're plugging in. Look at Dalton. Andy freaking Dalton. Red Rifle still hanging around. So there is value in having those quarterbacks in the back end. Jordan Mason for Antonio Gibson. That's a smash on the Mason side there. Some of these deals, you wonder kind of what's going on there. Really, where I'd value him as a second. I think he's still at that second range, but it's the type of deal where if I have him, I'm probably want a first, right? I want that low end first or a second plus an asset. But if I can, and another way too, I think an underrated way to kind of deal these guys is you add a piece to him to get a better tier up, right? So Rome Odunze, excuse me, and Jordan Mason for Brandon Ayuk. Now, I like Rome. I think Rome is someone I'd probably want a little bit more than Brandon Ayuk right now. But if you're a contender and you need that wide receiver help, especially with the injuries of the 49ers, and you want to buy into Brandon Ayuk, that's the kind of way to do it. Or I like the Jordan Mason and a first for Nico. Perfect. You're going to bank on that. Like, hey, I'm going to go. I want Nico Collins on this roster. That's cheap for Nico Collins. That's a great way to kind of use calculators against people and see if you can kind of manipulate what their value's at. Next guy I want to talk about is Puka Nacua. Puka's gone down in value slowly but surely, right? We're going to know that's going to happen here. He's going to miss 5 to 7 weeks. We have the sprained PCL, and that's one of those things that with his cutting and his ability, the way he plays football, it's going to be hard for him to come back from that injury. You can see him probably going a little bit later. They do have a bye in week 6, so that's something to think about and to note. With Cooper Kupp getting injured too, you have DeMarcus Robinson, Tyler Johnson. They need him. Like, those are the things that they're going to do. We saw what he's able to do last year with, all those targets. So again, you're kind of buying late round production, but again, it's one of those things where there's question marks on when that's going to return is going to be. Are you already out of it? I think that's one thing to note with Puka. We know the target's going to be there, especially with Cooper Kupp being kind of banged up as well. Like, when Puka comes back, if he's healthy, he's going to win leagues. Like, that's pretty simple. And when you look at what he's going for right now, Johnny Wilson and Nacua for Drake London in a second, right? Puka for George Pickens in a first. That's pretty much his value. Pickens in a first. And I would argue Pickens is volatile because of that passing offense in Pittsburgh. I mean, when they're scheming up touches to Darnell Washington in the red zone, doesn't inspire a ton of confidence you have in George Pickens as a wide receiver red zone. I love Pickens. But if you can get him for Pickens in a first, I think you do that. Especially I think Nacua is a great add on like a mid to maybe not contending roster. If you can do that and give up something like some kind of veteran guys, right? If you're capable of doing that, I would definitely kind of lean there. DJ Moore, for example. If I can give up DJ Moore a second and third for Puka, I do that now, right? Especially if I'm in a mid-tier kind of contender, especially with DJ Moore's offense. That offense, Shane Walton's offense in Chicago is not great right now. And if you can kind of take advantage of that as a DJ Moore owner and say, hey, you want some production now? Who knows when Puka's going to come back? And you can grab Puka. That's a great kind of deal there. Puka Nacua for Devonta Smith in the fourth. Again, I like Devonta Smith. I do think he's in that 8 to 12 wide receiver category, but Puka, we've seen him kind of finish as that top 5 guy, where I think Devonta, even I wrote about in the Substack, I think he could be a wide receiver 1 low end guy. I like the upside of Nacua, right? I do that, especially with AJ Brown. I know AJ Brown's been injured this last week, but there's still question marks there too. And then, looking at some of these other deals, Nacua for Kirk, Sermon, and Pacheco. Sure, I'll throw all that junk in, and I'll take Puka Nacua there. If you can get one of those deals where you throw junk in, some mids, wide receivers, twos, running back twos for Puka Nacua, I think you do that all day. I know they got people in there say, oh, that doesn't happen in my league. That's bull crap. They do happen out there. If you can throw junk in and accumulate it and send it out there, what's the worst they can do? Decline it? Whatever. I'll take the decline, and we'll just move on with our day. Now, next guy that I kind of talked about as being a buy before the season, he's had a pretty good year. Week 2, 9 catches, 110 yards and a touchdown. When you're looking at overall 32% target share, that's great. Yeah, and I think the Yak's been there too. So when you're thinking of like his touchdown score, he has 3 red zone targets, over 14 yards after catch. And with Minshew, it's gonna be bumpy, but he's gonna throw the hell out of the ball, right? And we saw that him and Bowers are pretty much where you're looking at, Brock Bowers, and they're the 2 options there. But Bowers' target share is around 22%. When you're thinking of like 10% extra share, and Davante's first read share, I think, is at 36%. They're looking for him. Like, he's going to earn targets. That's just where they're going to go. The short passing game is going to be there. I think game scripts are the other things you worry about, but that Raiders team is not very great. You saw it against Baltimore playing down. They're going to throw the ball to Davante Adams. So I think game scripts are going to go our way as well, because, when you're looking at if you roster him, the Raiders are going to be down a lot this year, especially in that division. Think of the Chargers, the Chiefs. We know that. I don't want to say the Broncos, because Bo Nix can't throw a pass past 5 yards without getting intercepted. But those other guys, when you think of the game script and what it's going to look like, Davante's going to get targeted. And I think he's a great ad, right? I know he's 31, but he's a great veteran buy right now. When you're looking at what he's going for, like Tolbert in second is ridiculous. If you can get him for that, absolutely. Jaden Daniels, Davante for Burrow and Nico Collins. I think that's an interesting deal. I actually I like that getting Jaden Daniels side there. I think Nico has really come across. So if you like the Burrow and Nico side, that doesn't that wouldn't hurt me, right? But I do think that really just depends on what you think of Jaden Daniels. If you're trying to get younger, have that rushing upside, and you already have a top 5 quarterback, I think that's a ballsy deal, and I like it. I like ballsy deals on this show. Keenan Allen and Davante Adams for Cooper Kupp. Again, that was probably pre-injury there, but again, that just shows you where the value is. Rashad White, basically a first. If I can give up a 26 first for Davante, kind of kick that out a little bit, it still gives me maneuverability. If I have my 25th first and I can kind of use that as trade to bait, I would definitely do that. Adams in a chain for Kamara in a first, I would do that in a heartbeat. I think a chain is great. I think getting Adams there is back. I'm on that train there as well. The only deal on here that I'm definitely staying away from, probably the Devontae Drake London for Justin Jefferson. You would have to pry Justin Jefferson from my cold, dead hands. I will never trade Justin Jefferson off my roster. Me and him are going down to ship. But the other ones, I really like the idea of getting Adams on a great. I mean, he was cheaper in the offseason, but I still think he's cheap enough now where you can kind of ride him out. And with him and Bowers being there is really the only 2 targets on that team. You just take it, especially with their rushing inefficiency. Their rush offense hasn't looked great. I think their game script's going to go there. Buy Davante. And the last guy we got to talk about, Chris Olave. Where are we at with this guy? I think we should be a little bit worried, right? I mean, he had 6 targets last week, 81 yards, so he did look good. But the thing is, he's pretty much just a wide receiver 2, right? And when you think of where he was getting valued, he was getting valued as a wide receiver 1. You can see it there. His value has definitely slipped. You see kind of like where he was looking at in probably early September, right before the season started. I think it's concerning that he only had 2 targets in week 1 against Carolina. I understand game script kind of went away from him, but if you look at Rashid Shaheed and what he's doing in that offense, it's like, hey, why is Olave, your wide receiver 1, not getting those things? Now, he has great matchups. I think Philly's a good matchup here coming up. I think Atlanta, Kansas City, Tampa Bay. I really like the matchups he's going to get. But the issue I have is what is going on with this offense with Carr, how comfortable we are. And then you also got to remember the value dip. He might have a couple of big games, maybe, and that's going to help his value go. But it might plateau at like that 5,400. I think he's getting valued probably where he should have as a wide receiver 2. And I think you missed the sell window at him earlier in the year. But, how comfortable are you with his bounce back? What does that look like? He still has a possibility of bouncing back because you think of who's not on that team and who is. But when you look in here, Chris Olave in a first for Devon Chain. Don't hate it. I like giving up a running back, but I love Devon. Devon was one of my guys going into the season. I talked about him being a buy all the time, and I'm glad he's panning out and being that running back 1, especially when we're talking from a receiving standpoint. Dylan Olave and Chris Olave for Brock Purdy. If you can get Brock Purdy a super flex quarterback for that, I would kick the tires there. I do like this deal, Olave in a third for Ricky Pearsall. Give me Olave. I think talent-wise and draft capital-wise and just everything involved, I still want Olave in those sides. But it is interesting and getting interesting out there. Would you rather have Olave or Jalen Waddle? I think Jalen Waddle is one of those guys I'm struggling with because gosh, it just seems like he's injured all the time. Quarterback situation is not great. If I can just add a third to Jalen Waddle to get Olave, do I feel like Olave can finish rest of season better than Waddle? Possibly, especially with the Miami quarterback situation it is. And Waddle's been very, very inconsistent, right? So those are the deals there. Olave for Keon Coleman, Matthew Stafford. So these deals out there exist. It really just depends on what you think of Chris Olave. Do you think he can bounce back? Are you concerned about that? I think there's some question marks there. When we're thinking of him as a prospect and what he's looking at. So that's the show. We appreciate you guys kind of tuning in and checking it out. Make sure you subscribe, here the video. Let us know in the comments. Give me any trades that you have. Do you believe in Olave? Are you taking it after CMC, or do you feel like it's time to kind of move on from him? What are you doing out there in your leagues? And as always, any questions, any dynasty questions, throw them in there. I will answer them as we go. I always appreciate you guys tuning in. Check you guys next time.